Hey y'all, I'm Tracy. Welcome back to the farm. I've been working on my summer rose care and maintenance, and this is honestly the time of year when I start questioning my love affair with all of these roses. It's mid-June and I'm in central Alabama, zone 8, and it gets really hot and really humid here in our summertime. And the roses don't really like that heat and humidity too much. But that is one of the main reasons why I choose old garden antique heirloom roses and earthkind roses, is because even though they will get black spot and they do struggle with humidity, they're easy to come back from it. They flush off the old growth, put on new growth, and they survive. They survive it without having to be sprayed heavily or without dying out like your modern and hybrid roses do. This time of year, the roses start looking kind of rough. They get a little bit of black spot. They get some of the stems start dying, and you have to come in and clip those up and clean them up. There's a lot of spent rose blooms on there, and they just kind of start looking rough during the summertime. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of maintenance for as many roses as I have. It's a lot of maintenance. And even though I do start questioning my love affair, it is definitely worth it to me to grow these roses. Plus, I like deadheading the roses, and I like working in the rose garden. So it's definitely worth it to me. I don't think that I could live without roses in my garden. My roses showed out really well this spring. If you didn't see my old garden rose tour, y'all go check that out now, because the rose show was beautiful this year. And that was a tour of just some of my roses that were really pretty this year. Join me in the garden and let me show you how I take care of my roses in the summertime. I had to get my garden tool bag here. It's got all my stuff in it to take care of my roses. So the first thing that I have is my long sleeve shirt, because those roses tear my arms up. Now, usually I would be using rose gloves, which I love, but my rose gloves finally bit the dust. I had them for 12 years. I bought them when I first started working at Petals, and they were they're long. They're like long gloves. They were leather. They lasted forever. They were awesome, but finally they just had holes all in them, and I chunked them, and I haven't went and got me any more yet. But if you're gonna have a rose garden and you're gonna work in roses, I highly suggest rose gloves, just to protect your hands and protect your arms. But since I don't have any right now, I'm just gonna put on my long sleeve shirt and just use regular garden gloves. My second tool that I have is my Felco pruners, and I love Felco pruners. Like, they're my favorite. They're really expensive. I think these were like maybe $50 or $75. I don't know. I got a few pair of them, and These were somewhere around $50, but I've had them for I don't know how many years, since I first started gardening. So I mean, I've had these things forever, and they have lifetime replaceable parts, and they're just good, tough, good pruners. So I usually always have my Felcos with me. They also have this little case that they come with, so you can like put that on your belt loop and keep your pruners with you. I don't really do that, but because I don't like them right on me. But anyways, Felcos, awesome. If you're a gardener, you need you some Felcos. It's a good birthday present or Christmas present from somebody. So I got my Felcos. The next tool in my toolbox is my paper towels and my spray bottle with bleach water in it. And the reason I have this is because in between each rose that I'm pruning or working on, I like to spray my pruners with the bleach water. So I just take it and just spray it down pretty good and shake it off and get a paper towel and just wipe them off, and then move on to my next rose bush. And that just keeps me from transferring any kind of disease or fungus or anything that was on powdery mildew, whatever that was on, that could have been on my roses. It keeps me from transferring it to the next rose. I also do this in the orchard. Whenever I'm pruning or working on fruit trees or whatever in the orchard, I spray in between each tree with the bleach water, just to keep from transferring anything from tree to tree or shrub to shrub. Now the next thing in my tool bag is my gardener's tape. And this is just stretchy gardener's tape, and I get mine at Petals from the past, but I've seen it at Lowe's and Home Depot, so you can get it there. I use this to tie up my roses. So any of my climbers that are going wild and just need to be trained, this is what I use to tie my roses up, because it stretches as the rose grows, and as the trunk grows and expands, the tape stretches as well. So it keeps it from girding the trunk or the branch of the rose, because if your trunk or branch gets girded in any way, then that opens up a door for insects and disease and different things to get to your rose. So I love to use my gardener's tape, and I'm trying to make sure I always have it with me. The next thing that I have in my tool bag is my fertilizer. So today I'm using the Rose and Flower Care, the 3-in-1. It's a systemic. So this is a fertilizer, insect, and disease, all 3 in one whack. And that's awesome, because that saves me a couple of steps. But I'm using this today. This is mid-June, like I said earlier, and I'm having some trouble with some black spots. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dose of fungicide and fertilizer and insecticide, because there's also some insects on the roses. I'm going to just give them a dose of this, and it's a systemic. So what that means is it's granular, and you just shake it around your rose. And what systemic means is it goes into the soil and it takes it up from the roots. It goes into the stem, into the plant, into the branches, into the leaves, into the blooms and flowers. And it's just like medicine that moves all through the plant. Now that does take some time for that to actually get into effect, because it has to first of all absorb into the soil, get to the roots, and move through the plant. So it takes a little time. So if you have a rose that already has some black spot or some issues, you may want to go ahead and get a spray application of a fungicide and spray on them as well. Because if you've got a major black spot issue, you might want to go ahead and try to take care of it. But what I like to do is use this, and I just put this around my plant and let it take it up through the roots, and medicine for my whole plant. Now, I do have some black spot, but I don't have like a really bad case of it. So I'm not gonna come back and spray. I'm just gonna use this and let it do its job. But if I had a really bad case of black spot, I would spray it. Now, I try to grow everything organically around here, especially our food. Anything that we eat or consume, I try to grow it as organic as I possibly can. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm 100% organic, but I try my very best to be organic and to practice permaculture principles and practices and put a lot of things into effect so that I don't have to spray or use a lot of synthetic or toxic chemicals. But when it comes to my roses, I'm not really worried about an organic practice, except for the ones that I use in my products. So like my roses that are in my medicinal garden, I'm not gonna use this, and I'm not gonna use any kind of synthetic or toxic chemical on those roses. I'm just gonna let them be and let them do their thing and use natural organic fertilizers on them. And for that, I like to use Rose Tone by Espoma. That is a great organic fertilizer for roses. So on fertilizing your roses, what you want to do is from mid-March to mid-September here in my zone. It's probably different for a lot of you who are in different zones and climates than I am. But for Central Alabama, Zone 8, the way that we care for our roses is from middle of March to middle of September we fertilize. Every 4 to 6 weeks we fertilize. And we like to alternate fertilizers. So in the beginning I'll use a rose food with a systemic insecticide because aphids is a big problem when new growth is coming on. Then the next 4 to 6 weeks I'll probably use some Rose Tone. Then the next 4 to 6 weeks, I'll probably use like some Milorganite, which is another organic fertilizer. And then when we start getting into the summer months, I'll use this 3-in-1 product with the fertilizer, insecticide, and fungicide, all 3 in 1. So we like to alternate the fertilizers because the roses need a diversity of different nutrients and different things. So that's why we like to alternate different fertilizers throughout the growing season, mid-March to mid-September for me. So that's basically it for the tools that I need in my toolbox to take care of my roses today. So let's get in the garden and get busy. Now there's a difference in deadheading roses and in like some light summer pruning of roses. There's a difference. So when you're deadheading roses, let me just show you these. This is Facey's Blueberry, which is in my medicinal garden, and the reason it's in my medicinal garden is because it makes these fabulous big rose hips. Rose hips are high in vitamin C and really good for you to, like rose hip tea is what I make with mine. But really, I don't want rose hips right now in the summer. I want more rose blooms in the summertime. So I'm late on doing this. I didn't come out here and deadhead after my spring show. Everywhere you see a rose hip was a rose flower. And I should have come out here and deadheaded right after it was finished blooming, because what happened was energy went into developing the seed, which the hip is the seed. So all my energy went into developing that instead of developing me more blooms for the summer. You can see I've got just a few, but not a lot. It should already have a lot more blooms for the summer, but I didn't deadhead it, so it didn't. So what I want to do is I want to come in here and remove all of these rose hips where my where my flower bloom was. Now this fall I'll leave them. After it finishes its fall show, I'll leave all the dead. I won't come out here and deadhead the roses. I'll leave them and I'll let the rose hips develop, and then I can harvest my rose hips for my rose hip tea. I might do a little bit of summer pruning to this, but mostly I'm just gonna come in here and deadhead. Okay, this is how I was taught at Petals to properly deadhead a rose. So what you wanna do is you wanna find your, like right here, I think you guys can see that okay. This is where the roses would have been, the spent roses. Now they've turned into hips because I left them too long. But what you wanna do is you wanna come down from where your spent flowers are, find new growth or leaf vegetative growth that has at least 5 good leaves and that are pointing outward, and make you a cut right above it at an angle about 1/4 inch above the leaf. The reason you want the leaves pointing out is because I want the new growth to start growing outward instead of inward. I don't want it to grow inward and get the center of the plant all congested and crisscross with other branches. I want to try to leave as much airflow as I can, and I want my new growth to start coming out. So that's basically it, is you just make sure when you're deadheading that you go down to at least leaves that have 5 new leaves growing on them, and make your cut. It's that simple. As far as light summer pruning, what I like to do is, if my rose bush has, like this one, if it has a couple of branches that's just coming out kind of wild away from the shape of my rose, I just want to come in and kind of cut those and keep the shape of my rose as a nice rounded compact type shape. So what I'm gonna do with these stems that are coming out away from the rose bush and kind of messing my shape up, I'm just gonna take them each individually, come down to where I've got some nice new growth with leaves pointing outward, and I'm gonna make a cut. Your spring blooming roses, you don't necessarily have to deadhead if you don't want to. I mean, it makes them look better. They look cleaner and nicer and neater, but you don't necessarily have to deadhead if you don't want to. You're just deadheading to keep promoting new blooms and new flowers. So what you can do on your roses that are just spring bloomers, you can just come in during the summertime and just do a little bit of a selective pruning and keep them the shape that you want them to be, but you don't necessarily have to deadhead. This is my Lamarne rose, and you can see, looking at it, it's in pretty rough shape. Like all of these right here, this is where it was flowers, and it's kind of just deadheaded itself because I didn't get out here and do it in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and take these back, cut that off until I'm to the new leaf growth. But also you can see down here, see all the dead that's in there? I'm going to meticulously take my time and come in here and prune out all this dead, because that's restricting airflow to get inside my rose shrub. So I want to remove the dead. I'm just going to come back and take these back to new foliage growth, and you can see on this one, see how these stems are kind of coming up away from my shape of my plant. I'm going to selectively prune those back and shape my plant back up. So even though it's hot out here and it's hard to get out here in the summertime and get this kind of work done, it's definitely worth it, because I'll still have a summer show on my summer bloomers, and my roses will just always look good. Now this one that I'm coming up on is my Rosa multiflora carnea on my archway trellis in my potager garden, and you can see it's a bit of a mess. They grow really fast. It's like overnight, and it's a couple of feet on the thing has grown. So I've got to just get in here, and you can see some of the black spot on here. See that? It's not really bad, but it's there, and it makes it look bad. So I'm gonna give it a dose of that fertilizer, and I'm just gonna weave my branches in my trellis here and train those. Any of the wild ones like this that are growing out away from the trellis, I'm gonna prune those off. And because I don't want them coming out here, I want them going up and over my trellis. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take those out. So I've got to do a little bit selective pruning here. I've got to do some training, and I've got to fertilize with the fungicide. This is my Peggy Martin rose here, and the way that I'm taking care of it during the summertime, because it grows like crazy, is all of these that are coming away from the rose the structure that I'm wanting it to climb on, I'm just gonna cut those off. Now this one, I'm gonna tie it up and train it along here. You can see I've got some nails there that Jean put up there for me. So I'm just gonna keep working it around and tie it up with my gardener's tape. And usually she sends out new growth down here all at the bottom and all along my stem here, and it's just wild ones like coming out going this way and that way. Well, I just keep those cut off because I don't want them going that way. I want it just to circle around this pole and come up and gracefully go over. So this rose, I need to do just a little bit of pruning. I need to tie it up and fertilize it, and that's it. Champ and I had to come sit in the shade for a minute. It's pretty hot out here. Even though the breeze is nice, it's still pretty toasty. I had quite a few comments and questions on my rose tour video asking me how I take care of my roses and keep them looking good. So I hope that this video helped you guys out a little bit on how I take care of my roses and how you can take care of yours in the summertime to keep them looking good and keep them blooming. So thank you for hanging out with me and Champ today in the garden, and you guys have a blessed week, and I will see you on the next video. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, will you please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because YouTube really likes it when you guys give me a thumbs up and when you send me comments. It'll promote this video more and more people can watch it and hopefully enjoy it and get some value out of it as you did. And if you're as passionate about growing old garden roses as I am, then you might enjoy a few of these other videos as well. God bless you guys.